So this is another long time. So I'm going to talk about the importance of realizing original innocence when beginning trauma healing or shadow integration work. And when we're looking to heal or to restore ourselves back to wholeness, it's important to understand original innocence is the foundation. What I mean is that fundamentally, every human being at their core is innocent. Now, that might seem like just my point of view or a belief or something of that nature, but it was revealed to me in the year 2000 after cleaning up myself a little bit from a life of crime and drug dealing and drug using and seeking truth and seeking answers and seeking healing and wanting to transform my life. Something opened up inside of me, and I was staring right to the core of my own being. And I realized the original nature, this pure light, this innocent being, this vitality that brought my whole body mind into existence that really is me. And ever since then, since the year 2000, I've been extremely passionate about helping other people experience this for themselves. So what's evolved in the last 24 years is this work that I do in the Invincible Coaching Academy, my Invincible Kingdom company, is all about restoring the realization of original innocence. It gets lost. People have an identity that is of wounded or broken or corrupt, and that's usually, in most cases, shaped by painful or overwhelming experiences they go through at different points in their life, even as early as in the womb. So a lot of these things from the womb, during infancy and early childhood development, there could be a lot of what we call precognitive trauma that happened, right? Events that were painful or overwhelming that caused the child or the individual to form conclusions about itself, about others in the world. And these conclusions are not cognitive or not in the analytical thinking mind, because that part of the mind has not developed yet. They're more emotional and somatic. And so what we have is, because a lot of children go through painful and overwhelming events that they're unable to process fully, and that do shape their perception of themselves, others in the world, we have a whole world of people that can be filled with a sense of guilt, shame, condemnation that lives maybe unconsciously. And then on top of that, we're trying to escape those feelings of guilt, shame, and condemnation, or that sense of like, something's wrong, I'm not enough, I don't belong, I don't fit in, nobody likes me, I don't trust the world is unsafe. There's all these deep, they're more like feelings. They're not necessarily thoughts, although we can formulate thoughts on top of those feelings and those emotions, but it can be like a condition, like a chronic frequency happening in the body, which blinds us to the innocence that really is our nature. And so the body mind has become infected, in a sense, with this disease of something is wrong. But the original innocence is still there underneath that mental, emotional, somatic patterning that something's wrong, right? And so in the work that I do, the trauma healing or integration of trauma, the shadow integration, shadow is simply those unwanted parts, those denied parts, the parts that we're ashamed of, that we never want to even acknowledge are there in us, right? We've shut them out of our awareness. It's important to welcome these and to bring them back into awareness, to love them with compassion and care, because what that does is it frees us from that underlying sense of guilt, shame, and condemnation that has us perhaps striving to achieve things in order to get away from this gnawing feeling that something's wrong with me. And so it's very important to me to help people realize their original innocence. And there's many ways to get at this, but I'm so clear about what the goal is, like what the purpose is of the work that I'm doing with people, that it accelerates this possibility. And there are a lot of healing modalities and therapeutic modalities that have maybe sub goals, right? They don't have the whole goal of helping the individual realize their original innocence, because that's not even part of their thinking process yet. And I've noticed that. And I've been through, different coaching modalities, different processes, different things. Like, how can I say it? Like a lot of stuff, basically. And though they have been helpful in ways, they didn't have as their primary objective the restoration of awareness of original innocence present. And once I got highly concentrated on this within my own experience, and I learned to go beyond my mind, emotions, and body conditions to recognize this original innocence inside, everything became a lot easier. The cleaning up of the unclean thoughts, right? The self-negating thoughts, the self-critical thoughts, all of that stuff became a lot easier when I was in touch with the sense of original innocence, the sense of safety and love, and an inner sense of support and goodness of my soul. So that is the foundational approach that I take when working with people, whether it's in relationships, doing relationship, coaching and coaching work to help the couple restore their communication with one another or their sense of love and intimacy with one another. I really focus on helping each person that I work with get back in touch with the original innocence as quickly as possible. And what's cool is because that became the objective, then it became easier to identify the what's in the way stuff, right? And now that I've got years of doing this work, 24 years of being at this, and nonstop, right? For those 24 years, it's just my passion. I've been able to codify, delineate basically what it is that fundamentally is in the way, and I can help people quickly overcome the barriers, the restrictions. So, I'll break it down for you in a real simple way. But the first thing that I've noticed that gets in the way is something that I call the masks that we wear. And the masks that we wear are the way that we present ourselves to the world. It's a pretending, but for us, we affirm it as our identity. It's a construct of our own making in order to escape the underlying three factors I'm going to speak to right now, which is the core beliefs, which are limiting beliefs like I am or I am not something, people are or are not something, the world is or is not something. And those core beliefs are anchored in the next layer below, the core fears. And core fears are simple. It's the effort to avoid some kind of pain that we anticipate might be coming, right? We're only afraid of something that we believe might bring pain or death to us, right? And so underneath the core fear is the real root that we have to address and complete and uproot to set somebody free. And that is the core wound. The core wound would be that event, the very specific event where intense physical or emotional pain happened. And as long as that lives in the subconscious memory, there's going to be a core fear. Okay. And there are parts of the brain that manage all of this. The amygdala is considered the fear center of the brain, and the amygdala is constantly scanning our environment without our conscious awareness to identify anything similar to something that wounded us in the past. And if the amygdala picks up something that looks similar enough, and it just has to be similar enough. I mean, it could just be like, if you were abused by a man as a child, another man that looks somewhat similar, maybe not even just be a man, maybe the tone of voice is similar, just something of that nature, the amygdala can get triggered and we don't know that that's happening. And the body can go into a state of anxiety or fear or dramatize whatever neurological biochemical activity was taking place to help us survive the wounded moments, right? The moments that we experienced the wound in the past. And that's why we have these weird sensations and feelings and things that happen inside of us. Knowing this is very powerful because even if we don't go back into memory, and I prefer that we don't, it just takes a lot of time, we can deal with a human being in the present moment. And I do this, and we can deal with the person's current life situation, whatever's going on that's triggering them or causing a sense of depression or anger, irrational feelings and thoughts that they don't seem to understand. Whatever it is that's showing up in the present, as long as we bring conscious attention, awareness to that with love and compassion, which with the help of an individual like myself or in the group work setting where we have a group of people all present to you while we're doing this, it allows you to be with stuff that you haven't been able to be with. And by being with it, we start to neutralize the painful, fearful event or the limiting belief, the core belief. And the masks are something that we just need to identify as like, we got to kind of have to break those down a little bit before we could get into the deeper inner work, right? And we got to look at that stuff within. Anyway, I've resolved this to something very simple. I've noticed this over the years of doing this work. It's scientific for me. It can be observed scientifically over and over again. Anytime we're looking to help someone get a release from some kind of unconscious control parameter that's causing them to act irrationally or have anxieties or mental conditions that they seem to be out of control of, like bipolar thinking, swinging, and the emotions that come with that. We get to the bottom of it all. There's a core wound there. And then there's fears. And then there's beliefs. And then there's the masks that people wear. And there's the manifestation of the symptoms too, right? The symptoms will allow us to identify causes if we know how to trace it back, which I've spent 24 years figuring this out, looking for answers to what it is that's causing these symptoms to manifest in my own body or in the body of others. And so it excites me that there are absolutely clear, definitive solutions. And it starts with me as a trauma-informed coach, knowing that everybody is truly fundamentally innocent and good at their core. And because I'm fixated on that, and my focus is so determined there alone, I tolerate nothing less than us getting in touch with that. And then it's a matter of helping the client navigate through the masks, the limiting beliefs, the core beliefs, the core fears, the core wounds, right? Until we get complete with those wounds. And it doesn't have to involve heavy traumatic or re-traumatizing revisiting of the past. It literally can be just dealing with the body, emotions, and the mind's experience in the present and bringing love and compassion. It's an accelerated way to bring about healing or wholeness, reintegration of suppressed, lost parts, right? A person's psyche and emotional and somatic nature gets conflicted and split, and there's all this like resistance internally. And so what I do is I help a client bring all these parts back together where everything's worthy of love and everything's worthy of acceptance. But that's not the typical human condition, right? Most people, including myself for years, lived with this, something's wrong with me, and there are parts of me that I never want to ever see, and I never want anyone to see them because I'm sure that something's wrong with them. And some people are going to hate me, or people are going to not like me or reject me if they were to see this part of me. And so there's all these suppressed pieces of my experience which make me feel in an underlying way, even if it's not conscious, like something is fundamentally not right with me because it lives in my body mind. And my body mind has this chronic like vibration or frequency within itself, that like an undercurrent of tone that I can feel sometimes, right? And if there's a stressful event, I might be triggered severely. And those underlying tones that might be kind of muted for the most part of the day or the weeks or the months can all of a sudden be activated. And like you'll have people who have been fine for years, and then one day something happens in their life, and next thing you know, they're just ridden with anxiety day in and day out, and they don't seem to be able to escape the anxiety. But they were fine for the last 10 years of their life. Why is that? Because there was already something there in the body mind. It just wasn't queued up yet. Okay. Some event happened. Like let's say I know plenty of people have gone through this one. A breakup happens in relationship, and then the person falls into depression or anxiety, severely, right? It's not the breakup in that present moment that did it. There was already an underlying condition that triggered this, right? If that deeper wound wasn't there, this person wouldn't have gone into such despair, because we know people that they have a breakup and they just kind of walk away from it. They cry, and they clean up and they move on with their lives, right? Some people can do that. Why is it that some people can do that, but other people fall into this deep depression? There's underlying conditions there. And the reason I know this, I'm not just talking out of, thin air here. I've been examining the inner workings of the human consciousness for the last 24 years and a half, really, since 25 years, since 1999. And I started sitting quietly in Zen Buddhist meditation, observing myself. And then I started to notice these inner workings that I was completely oblivious to. I was living a life of crime and drugs. I was so outwardly focused. And then if I did drugs, I was so like spun out of my mind and drinking alcohol that I was completely unaware of these deeper inner conditions. But when I started sobering up and sitting with myself, these conditions became present to my awareness. And so as I became more interiorly aware of myself, and I started to process a lot of that unprocessed material in a very crude way. I didn't have skills like I do today. I barely survived some of the processing because it was so intense, the things that were surfacing, which is why it's important to have a good coach or therapist or counselor, somebody who really knows what they're doing, who's navigated the territory, can hold the space for you properly and stand with you in love and compassion. Because otherwise, like for me, I almost fell into suicide because I just couldn't be with what was coming up. I barely made it through that. But it did give me insight into what was going on. And because I got insight into what was going on, and I did start to get complete with some parts of me, other people started showing up in my life almost like naturally. I mean, I didn't ask for it. I didn't chase after anybody. People just showed up and would share their problems with drug addiction or abuse or whatever. And I would just start listening and being with them. And I would start asking questions. I've always naturally been a very curious person who wants to know how things work. So I started investigating people's inner world with them. And I was able to do that because I was aware of things. So I would say, well, do you notice anything like this? Do you notice anything like that? And I just started this counseling processing journey back in 2000 with people, more informally. And I was also studying more information, learning about tools and practices that were giving me more skills and abilities. And I just been going ever since. It's just been a really cool journey. And I've really mapped out the territory within. But the original topic here, I'm going to wrap this up now, was, basically realizing original innocence as the foundation for trauma healing and shadow integration. Because if we as the coach or the therapist or the counselor or the person who's trying to help somebody out, if we don't understand that innocence is the essential nature of that person, like if we don't know where we want to go with them, how are we going to get them anywhere, right? Like if we don't know that about ourselves, if we haven't discovered that internally, then how are we going to take anybody there? We're going to take them on a winding journey. And sometimes that winding journey can be helpful. I'm not going to deny that, but we're still not getting to the ultimate goal, right? Which is that person is restored fully to innocence. Like nothing's wrong with me. Like I'm no longer guilty, ashamed. I'm not an abused victim of life. I'm not the effect of the world, but I'm actually a free person and I'm loved, lovable, and loving. And that's just my nature, right? And it's now fully realized. It was always there. I didn't grow into becoming a loving person. I grew out of the lies and the deception and the pain and the fear and the limiting beliefs that were covering it all up. And I think it's so important to understand that. There's nothing to become. It's more like an unbecoming. It's like unbecoming is the way, not I need to become a more loving. I need to become more spiritual. I need to raise my vibration. It's like, well, your vibration raises when you get off of the things that have been suppressing your vibration, because power that generates frequency to begin with is already present in every human being. It's just dominated or suppressed by these various conditions. So what I found is trying to raise your vibration without, eliminating the effects, the causes that are suppressing the vibration is like a futile game. Some people already know that. A lot of people come to me and have shared this with me, that they've been trying to do that and it hasn't been working because they haven't offloaded the weight that they're carrying. It's like, your car is filled with bricks in the trunk and the back seat and the front passenger seat, all loaded up with bricks to the roof. Your car is weighing, an extra couple of 1,000 pounds. And you're like pressing the gas and you're like, oh, I need to raise my speed. I need to raise my vibration. And it's like, and what do? You try to fix and change the car in all these different ways. But the real issue is, even if you add turbo to it, even if you add nitrous oxide, right, to the fuel, right, and you turn that on, you'll get higher performance possibly, but you're still dragging all these bricks in the vehicle forward. And it's like, I see people doing this, and yeah, you can, like me, I was able to accelerate my vibration, raise my vibration, but that didn't mean I was offloading the bricks. I ran into this eventually. I was like, oh man. So I was able to achieve a certain degree of higher frequency just to come collapsing back down because I'm burning up a lot of energy wastefully. And that's what that vehicle would be like. You can put great fuel in it, the turbo, change out the transmission. You can do all these things to the car. But if the bricks are still there, you're not running at optimal performance. But if you take all the bricks out, you lighten the load by a couple thousand pounds, the car can just fly now. And like, that's exactly how I feel today in my life. I fly through life because the bricks have been offloaded and I feel alive and I feel free. And it's like, oh my God, I was innocent to begin with. I was never guilty. No matter what I did, I was a confused person, a hurt person, a wounded person doing things that I later regretted. But what started all that was the wounding that I didn't have healing around. So I realized that I'm innocent inside of all the terrible things that I did or had done to me. I'm still innocent. And once that was realized, it's like, feels really good. So if you've been watching this today and you stayed to this long, I appreciate you. Would love to hear a comment from you, and would love to know what it is that is coming up for you. What are you noticing about yourself? Are you still carrying a carload of bricks? You know, are you still trying to raise your vibration with a bunch of bricks in your trunk and in your back seat and in your front seat? Like, what's going on? You know, do you realize that you're truly innocent? Is there still a sense of guilt, condemnation, and shame that runs like an undercurrent in your soul? What are you present to? Love to have this conversation with you more in the chat. Love and blessings your way. I'll see you soon.